Hey everyone, Kaan here. Just want to give you some of my thoughts on the developing manager situation at Beşiktaş. Uh, Nothing quite clear yet. We're still kind of left guessing. A lot of different media sources saying different things. We're not getting the usual suspects as much as we were a couple of weeks ago. So the names of Şenol Güneş, Sergen Yalçın being floated out less there. We're hearing some more exciting rumblings, I would say. I don't know, since yesterday, I believe the name of Razvan Lucescu has really been coming up a lot. Nuri Şahin is being pushed more. So right now, and I feel like this changes. Sorry, my dog. I feel like this changes every couple of days. But obviously, a new coach is going to be announced soon. The season is over now. So you would imagine that hopefully we won't have to wait too much longer. So if things start heating up around a certain person now, uh, there's a possibility for something to happen, right? So let's start with Nuri Şahin. And I've gone on record on the podcast before. I'm very much in favor of Nuri Şahin. I know a lot of you have your doubts because other than what was it, 1.5 year in charge at Antalyaspor, he doesn't really have any experience. He's only 35 years old. I mean, look, Nuri is a intelligent guy. He got accepted to Harvard a couple of years ago, like 10, oh, it's 2016 or something. So to the Harvard Business School. I don't know if he ever finished that degree, but I mean, to get it accepted alone to Harvard is a big deal, right? He's from a good pedigree of footballing school, at least. Came through the Dortmund academy, has some great connections. Works at Dortmund right now. I mean, look, he's going to be the assistant manager to a Champions League finalist on Saturday. That's a pretty big deal. Also, somebody who has I feel like meticulously kind of planned out their career, came to Antalya at a still relatively young age, like 32, then, became player manager for a while. And when he noticed that wasn't really going to work out, went for the manager job. Reminded me a little bit of Vincent Company. Um, yeah, and I think he did a good job at Antalyaspor. I know some people weren't that impressed, but still, I think for the club and the limitations that club has and what he did, I think he did okay. I did a good job. And then for Dortmund to see something in him and put him into that position to become assistant manager, that also is a positive sign, I think. And obviously, his plan was to give up the managerial job at Antalyaspor, become assistant manager with the eye on becoming the permanent manager. And obviously, now with Edin Terzic reaching the Champions League final, it looks like he's going to stick around at Dortmund for at least another year. So that changes things a little bit for Nuri, which he obviously has ambitions to become T1, to become number one coach. So he was linked with Feyenoord and with us recently. But Feyenoord, it looked like, are going for Brian Priske from Sparta Prague. So that kind of removes them out of the picture, which is good for us, right? Gives us a better chance at Nuri Şahin, who I think right now is our number one Yerli coach choice, so domestic coach choice, Turkish coach choice, whatever you want to call it. And then, yeah, it's the question is, are they going to go for a Turk or are they going to go for a foreigner? And then when we look at foreigners, obviously the name of Jose Mourinho has come up in recent weeks. And like I said at the time, I thought it was very irresponsible by Hussein Yücel to put that out there, even if a deal was like impending. Even then, I would hold back and I would wait and I would just announce it and shock the world rather than, you know, dangle that massive carrot and get people disappointed. Because I think there's nothing, you can't win with doing that, right? Like, if he comes, you don't lose because it's massive and fine. But you kind of lose the impact that it would have as a surprise. That would be so big, right? But then if he doesn't come, like anyone who's gonna come now, Like whether it's Nuri Şahin, whether it's Razvan Lucescu, it doesn't matter who it's going to be. They are going to get compared to Jose Mourinho, especially if Aziz Yildirim ends up winning the elections for Fenerbahce and he goes there. Yeah, then you're seen again as a loser. Then that's Dusan Tadic all over again from last season. Like, why would you put yourself and then the club in that situation? I cannot grasp it. I really cannot. So yeah, I mean, look, if Jose Mourinho, if you can get him, you should always get him. I think would be massive for Turkish football. Would be massive for the club. Would be massive for the reputation of the club, the spotlight on the club. I think it would be great for the fans as well. I think it would, I think it would really have a massive impact across Turkish football and give Beşiktaş. I mean, I've already set my thoughts on it. I am definitely in favor, even though I don't think that he necessarily plays the football that most of our fans want to see. And then I think the next man, Razvan Lucescu, around whom the rumors have been heating up recently, especially the last 24 to 48 hours. Obviously, just won the Greek league with PAOK, which is no small feat. That's only the 4th time PAOK have ever won the Greek league. 2 of those have come under Razvan Lucescu. One in his previous run before he went to Saudi Arabia, where he also won the Saudi Pro League with Al Hilal. And then, of course, now, his second stint at the club, he won it again. And you really, if you're not fully aware of the Greek league and you don't care about the Greek league, I mean, I'm not claiming to be an expert or anything either, but I think you can compare the Greek league quite well to the Turkish league. The mentality of the people is very similar. The institutionalized corruption is also prevalent there. It's very similar to very similar societies. And then that obviously weaves into the football, but then also very similar in the sense that you've got really 3 big clubs. You've got Olympiacos, you've got Panathinaikos, and then you've got AEK Athens, right? And then you have number 4, PAOK. Very similar to Turkish football, where you have Beşiktaş, Galatasaray, and Fenerbahce, and then you have number 4, Trabzonspor. And I would argue PAOK are, well, there's nothing to be argued, really. They are a far less successful club, relatively speaking, than Trabzon. Trabzon have 7 championships. They have a bunch of cups to their name. AEK have 4 championships and a couple of cups. They have significantly less silverware. So that's also something. And I think for Razvan Lucescu to upset the hegemony in Greek football is not something to be scoffed at. Also, the fact that he went to the Saudi Pro League, won the championship there, came back, won again. That also says something, right? He's capable of going somewhere else and being successful too. He is, very much his father's son, right? I think in terms of football, he plays a more attacking style of football, very organized, like his dad, also tactically adaptive. He's able to play with different sort of lineups. But all in all, I believe at PAOK he plays mostly with a 4-2-3-1, but he can also play with 3 at the back and all that kind of stuff. Like his dad played 3 at the back at Beşiktaş, if you remember. So he's tactically adaptive. He has he also, like his father, puts some emphasis on defensive organization. So his teams are well organized defensively. Now, well organized defensively does not mean plays defensive. That's not the same thing. You can be stable at the back and still play offensive football. He has his teams set up well. His teams function well. Don't concede stupid goals all the time. Defensively organized. But they also play attacking football. So I think that is a positive, and that fits Besiktas as well. The fact that he has the connection to Besiktas through his father, has coached in a league that is comparable to the Turkish one in many ways. Culturally, also in terms of media. Like obviously in Greece, there's a big partisan media lobby for Olympiacos, for AEK Athens, for Panathinaikos, and PAOK kind of left out in the cold a little bit. They don't have the influence that those clubs have, right? And then on top of that, you have the passion of the Greek fans, very comparable to the Turkish fans. So the pressure is very comparable as well. Like the derbies are very comparable, the atmospheres in it. Like I think in many ways he fits like a glove. I think he's the perfect candidate, and I remember like in like around 2021 or something or 22, I think when Sergen was leaving, I remember thinking back then and even telling my friends I'd have to go back in my WhatsApp history to check when exactly, but I've actually wanted Lucescu for a while, and then he ended up going to Saudi Arabia. But yeah, he's been one of my ideal candidates for a while, in my head at least. So I really think that Razvan Lucescu is the perfect match for Besiktas. Now, look, if you ask me Mourinho Lucescu, I'm gonna say Mourinho, but that's gonna have different reasons. That's mainly because of what it would mean for the club and for Turkish football. And I think that would just Mourinho is more than just a coach. He is a massive personality in world football, and he's part of football heritage at this point. So I would say Mourinho, but it would really not be necessarily the most rational choice, so to speak. If I would, if it would even be my choice. But I think Razvan Lucescu, if you take a step back and you take those external factors out of it, like the who Mourinho is and what he means and the attention he would bring to the club. I think if you look at it pure stylistically as a coach, pure in the sense of do I think he will be successful, I'd give the edge to Lucescu. I think. I really do. Doesn't mean he's my number one choice. Like I said, you can't say no to Mourinho. I don't think Mourinho will happen. I said that in our Mourinho episode as well. I don't think it'll happen. And that feeling has only increased since, because the signs that we have been noticing in the media aren't pointing towards it. Like, I think he's much closer to coming to Fenerbahce than he is to coming to Beşiktaş. That is the impression I'm getting. Look, obviously Aziz Yildirim is out there talking about it constantly. Meanwhile, our club, other than Hüseyin Yücel, who spilled the beans after the game against Hatay? It was against Hatay? After that, it's been radio silence, right? So we don't know. And people in the media clearly don't know either. Like, nobody knows. Like, that is also... It's one of the great things about Hassan Arat, and one of the negative things for us, because it's a great thing, because I think it's important that the club keep things quiet in order to not have prices get jacked up, in order for arrivals not to try and hijack, for a lot of different reasons. So it's for the club, it's better to keep things quiet. But for the fans, it's not, because we are left guessing. We are left frustrated, days without any credible news. Like, look, this is going to be a crazy 2.5 months or 3 months now of until August when the new season starts. It's, the transfer window is going to be nuts. Under Ahmet Nur Çebi, it was a massive mess. He did a horrible job as president, but one of the few, I don't even know if you can call it positive things, but we had a source straight to the board with Sercan Dikme, who was reporting constantly, and it was very reliable at the time. And that, in a way, that's a boon for fans, in a way. And we don't really have that now. We don't have someone we can say, oh, that person is reliable, or that person is reliable. Like, they have a clear in with the board and they're always accurate in reporting. We don't have that right now. And that is both a good thing and a frustrating thing. As a fan, it's frustrating. And I'm sure you all agree. I'm sure you all agree that it's a great thing that we're keeping stuff quiet, but it's also so frustrating. Um, yeah, and then obviously Lucescu for me, that is I would be so stoked. Other candidates, Vincenzo Italiano from Fiorentina is also being mentioned still. I'd be all for that too. I am not as familiar with him. I've followed Lucescu's career closer, obviously because of who he is. And also, I took notice to him that he was doing quite well at PAOK, and then he won the league, and he won 2 cups, and now he won another league. So, he's been on my radar for a while. I can't say the same about Vincenzo Italiano. I can't say I watch Fiorentina play very regularly. I've seen them play, obviously, in the Conference League several times now, also Klinsko Bruggen and stuff. So they look like a solid team. They play good football. So I would be all for him too. I know Kartel is very high on him. I'm gonna ask next episode. I'm gonna ask Kartel if by then we don't know who it is yet. I'm gonna ask him who he would actually prefer, because I'd be curious to hear whether he would prefer Lucescu or Razvan Lucescu or Italiano, because I know he's all in on Italiano. And then there's Raffaele Palladino from Monza, who's also been mentioned. Again, I don't know him, but I've read and heard good things. So again, someone I'd be perfectly fine with. There's a lot of different names out there right now that I'd be fine with, really. Nuri Şahin, like I said before, I'm perfectly fine with Nuri. I'd be very happy with Çağdaş, but that's not gonna happen, it looks like, because Başakşehir probably won't let him go. Kartal made the point on the last episode of, well, they let go of Abdullah Avci, but you need to keep in mind that Abdullah Avci was there for like a decade, a great servant to the club, and then he went and said, I want to go to Beşiktaş, and they're not gonna stand in his way. It's not the same thing for Çağdaş. Çağdaş hasn't been there that long, hasn't done the things that Avci had done for that club. So they have no reason to just let him go, to just let him out of his contract. Obviously, PAOK are most likely not going to let Razvan Lucescu out of his contract, and we'd have to pay a significant amount of money for him. Apparently, it's 2 million for any club from a top 5 league and 4 million for any club outside of that. So 4 million euros, that's a lot of money for Beşiktaş to pay for a coach. But like I said, in my head at least, for me, in my opinion, he fits us like a glove. And I think you fork out the money. If he wants to come, I think you fork it out. And if Hüseyin Yücel was willing to pay 10 million out of his own pocket for Mourinho, then why shouldn't he pay for this, right? Why should he not be willing to pay for this, right? Then other names that have been mentioned. Let me think. Is there anything? Well, Brian Priske was also mentioned, but he looks like he's going to Feyenoord. Giovanni van Bronckhorst has been back in the news a little bit. Not someone I'm super keen on. I hear really good things about him, both as a human being and as a coach. Players really like him, the way he approaches players. He's a really good man manager, supposedly. But just tactically, I don't think it's a perfect fit. He is more of a control football coach, not necessarily the most attractive football he advocates. Look, if he would come, obviously I would support him 100%. But just going into it, not as much as with Santos. With Santos, I 100% supported Santos too, but going into it, like, I knew, and I'm sure most of you had the same feeling, like, this isn't gonna end well. This doesn't make sense. This is not a good fit. I don't have that strong of a feeling with Van Bronckhorst. I think Van Bronckhorst has more of a chance of being successful than Santos. He's obviously a younger and a more modern coach. And he has done really, really well at Feyenoord with limited resources. Then at Glasgow Rangers, he got a European final. I know a lot of Rangers fans who liked him and still like him. Well, I should say I don't know a lot of Rangers fans. I've read a lot of Rangers fans saying that, and then I know one Rangers fan. So I shouldn't say I know a lot of Rangers fans, because that's just not true. I know one. And then I've seen other ones that I don't know have a similar opinion. Um, but like the thing at Rangers is the players were largely responsible for his failure, is what I'm getting from those people's opinions. And similar now, by the way, they still aren't doing great, and still the players more than the coaching and all that. But anyway, so I wouldn't necessarily write Van Bronckhorst off because he didn't win a Scottish League title. Also, it's not easy there, right? Like, you have Celtic to compete with, and Celtic, they are financially a lot stronger than Rangers are. Rangers were out of the top in Scotland for like 5, 6, 7 years or something, because they went bankrupt and had to start from the bottom of the ladder again. So they had to climb their way up again. So Celtic had all those years to build out their to expand that financial gap even further. So Celtic are obviously going to be able to get better players. They have a good scouting network. They get a lot of good players from Japan nowadays, since Postecoglou was there, and then also, of course, they had that Japanese connection before that, back in the day with Nakajima. Was it No, not Nakajima. What's his name? It doesn't matter. This is not a Celtic podcast. But anyway, yeah. So, I wouldn't write Van Bronckhorst off based purely on that. And like I said, he did a great job at Feyenoord. So I wouldn't be horribly upset if he came. But there's, I would be disappointed, I think, and not, I don't want to, like, no disrespect to him, but I just think that it would disappoint me, because I really hope that the board makes the right decision now. And if they would appoint him, I would go into it with the idea of, this isn't the right decision. And I really hope he would prove me wrong, of course. But going into it, it would be a bad feeling, I think. And really, I think he is a good coach. Don't get me wrong. I do think Giovanni Van Bronckhorst is a good coach. But I just don't think he fits perfectly. And I really think they need to get that decision right this time. They need to get it right. It's so important. And yeah, then someone like Razvan Lucescu just makes much more sense to me. And, I prefer Nuri Şahin over him too. I honestly, I'm very much in favor of Nuri Şahin. I'm just more in favor of Razvan Lucescu, because I think he's more proven, and I think he fits really well. Van Bronckhorst and Genesio was back in the news as well. Again, look, that's a guy that plays good football, attractive football, but has never won anything in his career. I wouldn't be against it. I wouldn't be super excited about it. I think if he had come when Santos came, that would have been different. But now, like, yeah, look, if we kind of run out of options, then maybe, but like, I don't know. Kind of feel like I'd rather not at this point, even though he plays really good football. And a big part of me thinks we are probably not going to win the league next season, right? We're going to rebuild, we're going to build a new team. And I really just want to see good football. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with not winning the league, as long as you don't have to suffer through every game like we had to do this season, right? Like, as long as we get to see exciting games, if we can make it difficult for our rivals in the derbies, we beat them a couple of times, and maybe get close that gap. There's a 40-something point gap this season. Make that smaller, significantly smaller. Make it 5 points or something like that. It's a big ask already. I think if they're gonna have, I doubt they're gonna have the same season they had this season, but that gap needs to be closed. And if that can be closed with good football, you don't necessarily need to completely close it, but if you can get close and you do it with good football, then I think we're going to be happy. If you do that, you close that gap and you do it with so-so football, like you don't win anything and the football isn't great, then that's not good, right? So, yeah, Genesio, if we don't win anything but the football's good, then, yeah. But, again, I think Razvan Lucescu is better fit. I think Nuri Şahin, I'd rather take the chance on Nuri Şahin than go with Genesio, who's never won anything in his career and who's already approaching 60. Rafael Palladino, I don't know if I talked about him. Again, not somebody I'm super familiar with. Read good things, heard good things. Italian coach, and I am of the opinion that Italian and Spanish coaches are generally tactically the strongest. Of course, you have Portuguese coaches who are great as well, and you have German coaches who are great as well. But those, generally considering, I think Italian and Spanish coaches are tactically the best. So Palladino, yeah, young and upcoming Italian coach. I'd be all for that too. Perfectly fine with that. And then there's one name, not in the media, but I would love this, and that's Sergio Conceição. He is leaving Porto after 7 years at the club. That is in its own a massive accomplishment. Staying at Porto for 7 years. He's looks like he's going to Marseille. Oh, I would love that, man. Like, he played in Belgium for a couple of years. He won the Golden Boot here, which that's not the top score, but that means like the player of the season, basically. Played for Standard, won, I believe, 1 or 2 championships with Standard. I'm not 100% sure, but great footballer. Quaresma before Quaresma in a way. Different style, also a right winger as a footballer. He was a little different though. Like, he was more like a guy that thrived on anger. Really good. He's technically amazing. Really good footballer, and he just carried that over into his coaching career. Like, guy just thrives on anger. So super passionate, and yeah, plays good football, attacking football. I would love him. I genuinely would love him. Like, if you would let me make a fantasy list, he'd be at the top, right? Like Razvan, Lucescu, Mourinho, Conceição. That'd be like, yeah, like that would be my top 3, I think. Not a name that's being mentioned at the moment, but who knows? Maybe if the Marseille move doesn't happen, yeah, if I was Hassan Arad or Hussein Yücel, I'd be on the phone with him straight away, look, try and convince him to come to Turkey instead. Like, would be great. Anyway, guys, that'll do it for me. I hope you liked this. I just wanted to get rid of my thoughts a little bit because I had some thoughts about these managerial rumors. Obviously, this isn't like a full-fledged episode or anything. But I figured, I'm just going to record my thoughts, see what everyone, if you like it or not. Look, if you guys think like, I don't have any interest in listening to Kaan rant for 45 minutes or whatever, however long this was. But if you do like it, if you do not mind listening to my rants, and you would like to get more of these, let me know and maybe I will do more. Anyway, thanks for listening. Bye-bye.